Hello, everyone. This is Nick from Polycore Records, and you are listening to the Paradise Arcade.
The Paradise Arcade may contain explicit content. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to the Paradise Arcade with Eric and Kyle. Thanks everyone for tuning in this episode. We've got a special guest, someone that I've been making contact with, and we've kind of like crossed paths a lot of times through various things. So I'm excited to talk to our next guest and talk about his very interesting history and his work in the chill synth community. Nick from Polycore, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
We've been kind of circling each other a little bit in the community and different things and crossing paths. So, and we've struck up a little bit of a conversation thread and kind of built a rapport over time. And so I'm excited to have you on and really get to know you and your story. And so thank you for coming on.
Of course, I'm happy to touch on all the details you want to know about.
And I think it's really, I like having people that are in the community doing the important work, because a lot of times running a label or an online community or those things, there's a lot of labor in things that go unseen and unheard. And I think it's important to have folks like yourself on to talk about the work, because I think there's a lot of times where consumers take for granted the effort and the passion. They just don't know, and it's easy to complain about something being late or whatever it is, and they just don't realize that there's not necessarily a lot of money, and most people are working another job trying to ship out stuff or work with artists and make connections, and it's a lot of work. So I just want to say thank you first and foremost.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So can you take us just from the beginning with Polycore and how you got started with that?
Absolutely. It was a while. It was a little bit of a while ago there, 2016. And I'm kind of young in the community. I think by and large, I'm 22 now. I was 16 back then. I started the channel. I was in high school, and I was kind of at that point. I was very, very much into Comtruce, and it did come from my burning passion for Comtruce. And one day I was looking, through some of his Discogs. I was looking through his website. I've heard on YouTube plenty of his unreleased tracks. It really blew me away, and I was thinking, wow, these aren't released. These are just somehow scrounged up from the depths of the internet. I was thinking, wow, there must be more out there, and I was looking through his website, and I did find a couple there, and that's how the channel started initially. I decided, wow, well, these are some cool tracks that I have not seen before. I'm going to go ahead and upload these. And that's what started the channel of Polycore. I think I initially called it Comrade as a name for a Comtruce fan. Not very, very politically correct at the moment, is it? But that was the name I gave it initially. And so from there, I just kind of only did Comtruce, deep cuts from his website or elsewhere. Nothing that he would have put out through Ghostly. And that was like the first few months, maybe even a year of the channel.
That's incredible. I'm really ignorant. I didn't even realize that there was all these other non-ghostly things in the world that he had released. I consider myself a pretty big Comtruce fan, so I feel kind of stupid right now.
Yeah, he's had multiple aliases, and that's also some of the stuff that I dug into was his previous aliases before he was signed to Ghostly. I mean, he had Airliner, which is by far my favorite. I would say really cool, sort of definitely on the IDM side of music, making use of even more kind of hip hop wonky beats that early Comtruce kind of still had at the time, um, and just really crisp and fresh. I would say that stuff is my favorite. Besides the Comtruce works, I think he had Sarin Sunday, which is a very ambient, down tempo project that I think resembles a lot of Boards of Canada. Um, he also had, let me think, there's um, System. I think that he was doing drum and bass with that stuff, and that was pretty interesting. Definitely way off course from the rest of his aliases. And then I think he had another one called Nostalgic Music Foundation, which was kind of, from what I can tell, a combination of Sarin Sunday and Airliner. Just it was kind of in between in that area. Um, and so I kind of dug into some of that stuff as well for the channel. Um, but I think I started mostly with the Comtruce works, which um, were either not on his catalog, kind of buried somewhere on the internet, something like that.
Wow, that's really, I mean, that's cool, and that's a labor of love. And it kind of goes back to my point of like curating and looking for all this stuff and putting it out there for people, like in one spot. That's it's a labor of love for sure. How did you expand beyond the Comtrues then?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this was a time in my life where I was really kind of a newbie with electronic music. Um, I used to not like electronic music, which is kind of funny to say. And at that time, I was really kind of getting into it, with fresh ears, a fresh set of ears. And Calm Truce was the first thing that caught my attention and really hooked me. And while I was digging for some of his stuff, I was also coming across his computer cast mixes, which featured some artists, I think, like Tycho or Night Moves or VHS Head. I think um, Lorne is, I think, maybe one of them, or was it Lone? Sorry, it was Lone. I discovered through them those computer cast mixes. So I kind of branched out into listening to some of that stuff and discovered those artists' catalogs. So it kind of branched out from um, what Seth was putting in his mixes and kind of promoting with that. And I started uploading some of that stuff, and that was kind of the next stage when I moved past only uploading Comtrues.
And then how did you get to be a proper, label, like a music distribution place, right? And then you moved into physical things as well, releasing physical music. So the progression really makes sense, and it's interesting. I can speak very similarly to that kind of getting initially hooked and interested in something, and then kind of wanting to just keep going down the rabbit hole of what that looks like. And then I guess another question for me is, did you see something missing and you felt compelled to fill that void?
And you're asking about
The
the
music
label.
label and putting music out, because it's one thing to curate a list or music. It's another to be like, now I'm gonna distribute and turn into a record label.
Right. I absolutely saw a gap. That was exactly how it started, in fact. And this kind of does tie back to my roots in the Chilson community and my interactions with artists and even doing some of my own production work. What I saw was that most people were really, fed up with most of the distributors out there, like DistroKid. That's a very popular one. And I saw a lot of people also just wanting to make music and not want to worry about the logistics of things. And, I spent so much time looking for something to give people and say, hey, this is a great distributor. This will solve your problems. And while there are some out there, they do not work with artists of that size, which in the Chilson community is on the smaller size. And I thought, wow, this is really not fair, is it? And I thought, well, I think I could do something better about it. And I had a few friends that produce music, and we got together and decided to start a label. Um, so I've had people like Electronic Visions, who's a great friend of mine, sticking by my side since the beginning, and he releases music through me. And my goal with this label was to actually fill the gap of what these smaller artists were really missing in what they were getting for distribution.
So it's kind of like a combination of being a want and a necessity all kind of rolled into one thing.
Yeah, I would say so. Um, there was just always something missing in each distributor, and a lot of people tended to kind of combine two together or use two at once to kind of make up for the inadequacies of the other one.
Did you have a background in this, or did you have to learn all the stuff on your own?
I picked up everything as I was going along with it. I think when I first joined that community, especially when I first started Polycore, I had no idea about the music industry at all. So I was really learning a lot. And I did learn some before starting the label, so I could feel comfortable with starting the label. But I have been learning quite a lot even since then.
I suppose it could be, you could say it's a lifelong learning experience. You're never going to know everything right away going into it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
And it's like, where do you see yourself going from here with the label?
Um, that is a really good question. I'm seeing that there's opportunities to kind of do more with it, provide uh, maybe publishing for artists or better promotion, things like that. Because we've got kind of the base down for what we really need, and I think we just probably need to expand. And I'm really looking forward to also doing vinyl releases. My life is kind of in a transition period at the moment, so I'm not too keen on it right now. But I think in the future, um, I definitely would be looking forward to doing vinyl releases, and probably more cassettes also.
Yeah, cassettes seem to be like the happy middle ground of collectability and affordability to produce.
Yeah, they are way cheaper than vinyls to produce, and they're still kind of a cool item that people think is very uh, um, I don't know, nostalgic. I guess is the word. It's an analog format that's still around now because of the community and the people that uh, support the artists and music.
So you, and what I'm hearing is that you clearly have a larger goal and vision for what you're trying to accomplish, and you're clearly very inspired. Are there other things that you are working into that are not necessarily related to Polycora? I know that, like, from our show, we've got Nitrowave TC, and then we've got our own record label, and there's, it just seems to like keep growing and building because, as you say, like, there's a want and a need, and it's interesting how that all very organically grows.
Hmm, that's a good question. Well, I mean, I don't have anything on mine that's completely unrelated to Polycora, but I am looking into long term trying to work with some friends in the music industry in that community to come up with just a better distributor plan for every artist out there. Because there's a lot of people that agree. Like I started the conversation about why I started my label. A lot of people agree that there's not something out there that's really good enough in all areas for artist growth. Um, so that's kind of something outside the label, but definitely related. Because obviously I can't support thousands of people or millions of people with the label. Its purpose is to be curated to some extent,
Right.
um, but that is a longer term goal for sure. Um, yeah, that's what I can think of right now.
I'm curious what maybe some of the roadblocks are because I'm a little ignorant of that. side of the business of distribution. It seems to me, just from my vantage point, that it's money. If you want distribution, you want visibility, you need to have someone with money behind you. I see a lot of people who are extremely talented hit a lot of roadblocks because they don't have a machine behind them putting them into the world, if you will.
Right. Yeah, and that's a big problem. That's why a lot of the good distributors require or only work with artists that do pull in some cash, some real cash. But some of the roadblocks for doing that are probably beyond me at this point. It's really in a brainstorming stage. I think it'll probably get into the startup stage maybe next year, later this year. It's really in its very, very early beginnings. I can imagine a lot of the roadblocks would have to do with just having those networks and connections with the actual the stores like Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
The idea though is to automate as much as possible and not sacrifice so much on quality to keep operating costs down.
Right.
Because a lot of the reason that these sort of invite only distributors only work with artists that bring in money is they pay for really good people to be their support and their manager. But we're looking to take the angle of something like DistroKid, but just better, I guess is the best way I can put it.
Kind of getting a flashback to like the Wild Stallions problem. It's like, how do you get Eddie Van Halen? Well, you got to have a cool band in order to get Eddie Van Halen. But how do you be a cool band? I mean, you got to have Eddie Van Halen first.
Right.
the damned if you do, damned if you don't type thing.
It's an interesting, I really admire just your going at it and trying to figure out, because that's how you innovate. That's how you kind of break down some of these barriers. That's how you think about like Bandcamp. 20 years ago, they would have been laughed out of the room for that kind of business model and what they were doing. And now they're one of the, they were just bought by Epic, which we'll see how that plays out. But they are the main way that independent artists at the moment can reach their audience and make money. And they, at least for now, aren't vampires sucking, every nugget of profit out of independent artists.
Right. Yeah, and kind of one of the ideas is we have a community of people that want something better, and that's a great place to start if we wanted to start this business.
That really is. Do you have like a mission statement in mind, kind of an operating mindset that's a little more concise?
I don't think we have something super concise at the moment.
A vision.
Yeah, a vision. We've sort of, and by the way, I'd say the guy in charge or the guy ahead of all this is Aaron DeMolder, Dr. DeMolder. I'll call him Doctor because he's about to get his doctorate. He's really, I think he's probably the one that's really trying to push this, and I'll help as much as I possibly can, and I really support his vision, and it's something we came together on. But he really doesn't want to be in it for the money. He wants to be in it for providing the best possible experience for artists and minimizing as much middlemen as possible between the artist and their revenue streams.
Yeah, that's hugely important. I think it's an interesting and noble way to go about it, because it's the middleman that gets all the money in really kind of any type of industry, and to try and to be the middleman, but then also not to like be in it for the money. It's really noble. I think it's a good cause, and I really hope that comes through, because obviously this scene needs it. And I think way to get exposure to artists, because like I think the perfect example of someone that needs exposure that you're trying to help with is Demon. Um, Fantastic music, just needs exposure, needs to get his music out there, and once people hear it, they go, "Oh shit, this is really great."
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm doing the best I can to help him with that. It is very interesting to see how there's so much talent that's buried, you know, and that's kind of where Polycore started. I was digging up talent, so to speak, you know, that was buried. Um, that's kind of what I've just been doing. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff out there. Um, and the purpose of that project is not necessarily to expose more of it, although I think it'll have maybe a side effect within the community of that. Um, but really, it's just making it as easy as possible, and because artists, at the end of the day, most of them just want to make music and share it with people as easy as possible.
Right. And not even want to think about any of the other stuff of it. And I think that's a pretty common um, thing where I see artists who could be doing better struggle because it's a whole other mindset. Being creative and being like a promoter are two different mindsets. And I find that you're kind of either good at one or the other and not necessarily both. And it takes a team. One of the things I've grown to appreciate about, again, this community and music business in general is that when you have artists that succeed, there's usually a team of people behind them helping them uh, push forward, and that's a lot of effort and a lot of labor on other people's parts to help an artist, and you really have to believe in them to really put that energy in and not really get anything out of it yourself.
I really couldn't agree more about the team aspect. That's another thing I noticed, and in other areas of life, it's great to have a team. You know, it's you got more power that way. You can make a bigger impact. Um, and I think, yeah, doing things on your own as an artist, when you have no idea about what you're doing, in terms of promotion and um, release strategies and things like that, it's a lot harder to make an impact. Um, I can see that the thing that we're working on could potentially help with that in some ways. Um, Maybe we could bundle some tools into the software at some point. Although we really just want to focus on the basics right now to get started.
Yeah, I think that's probably the smartest thing is get the main thing, the main goal out there in live, and then enhance it as you go on, as the thing starts to gain momentum, because you only have so much time in a day and so much energy, and you can't wait on something forever before it's perfect to put it out into the world.
Right. Yeah. And the most important thing is really filling the gap that we're really trying to fill, and starting with a solid product that can do that. And we'll be investing more money to make it even better and expand the feature set.
So you're a person that is has their hands in a lot of jars, so to speak. You've got your record company that you have, and then also being the owner and operator of the Chill Synth Discord community, and then with this other project. So you're really really well integrated into this scene, and that's got to take a lot of mental time for yourself, right?
Oh yeah, that's um yeah, I mean, I think it's just that my motivation and passion that just keeps me going with it, but it's certainly a lot of work, you know, taking into the taking into consideration that I'm in college still, and after that I'll have a job. You know, I got other things going on, but that's been my passion for the last, 4 or so years, is the whole Discord community thing, and then Polycore, of course. Um, Chillsynth is really, I couldn't have asked for a better community. I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's an
Chill.
chill. It's something that I sort of discovered by accident. I didn't realize it was sort of a separate thing from synthwave. Something I kind of stumbled into, um, and it's a really interesting, like sub genre of a subgenre almost.
Hmm.
And I don't even know if you could even, Kyle. I'm going to ask your opinion. Do you feel that chill synth is a sub genre of synthwave, or is it its own thing entirely?
Way to put me on the spot here. uh, my knee jerk response would be I would say it's part of synthwave. But true, you can look at it kind of at its own thing. I would say synthwave in general is pretty chill, just as a whole. But I mean, going further down the rabbit hole, thinking about all the other different subgenres that you can throw in there and other artists, some people say, well, that's synthwave, or that's definitely not synthwave. It's I'm gonna say that my final answer would be synthwave subgenre.
Okay.
How do you feel about it?
It's complicated because I think chill synth, along with like com trues, fits in a really weird position in retro inspired music, where like it doesn't necessarily have any of the hallmarks of synthwave, other than maybe using some synthesizers, but it doesn't have any of the tropes necessarily, right? And so it doesn't have like the song structures, it doesn't have the compositions, it uses different textures. So it's one of those weird in between things. Like Comtrues is probably one of the biggest inspirations for synthwave in general, but he himself, I don't necessarily know, fits comfortably within the genre itself. It's a weird.
That being the case, the whole reason I'm into synthwave is because of an artist that isn't a synthwave artist. Because Comtrues was my introduction into all of this as well.
Yeah.
And how I got my start.
Exactly. So it's weird. It's a weird. And I think, Nick, you've been working on a better fit for that style of music, datawave.
Oh, you're right. Now we're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about this? What's your opinion? How does this get in? Are you fighting to make it something else, or do you accept it? Do you get mad if somebody says, "Hey, this is synthwave"?
No, I don't get mad if people call ComTrue synthwave. I just feel that there's the reason I really initially came up, or I did not come up with that. We'll get to that later. The reason that I'm using the term data wave, I feel, is that there's a small handful of artists nowadays that are sort of taking from that ComTrue's style and expanding upon it. The likes of Demon or Clyde Shelton, those kind of artists that are doing stuff right now, and I think it needs its own little bubble to call it something.
Now, my question is, when do we get to the point where everything is just going to go back to being called electronic music again?
It's really, I mean, that's a really interesting question. I think as time goes on, genres become less defined as artists become more experimental, and at some point you'll just say it's electronic because it was produced electronically or digitally, and then you'll say, well, this artist makes this kind of music which sounds kind of like that, but it's unique, so I'm just going to call it by the name of the artist. And I just think at some point that might become a more useful way to call music. But at right now, I think some artists do fit in a certain bubble of what I am calling data wave now, or chill synth is certainly a much bigger bubble.
Very interesting. These we could split hairs infinitely, and I'm sure that everyone in this community has their own opinion of what is and is not a particular thing. And I don't necessarily ascribe so much to like being rigid with with labels, because I think it's dangerous to say like this thing is definitely this is what this is, and it's definitely not this other thing. I I get my sense with like chill synth and synthwave is that the label of it is more about the sense of community and not necessarily the music. Like people are really like wear it as like a tribal like thing. I'm part of the synthwave tribe, and you're part of my tribe if you're in this thing. And so we have these symbols, you know, the vector, the sun, palm trees, whatever, is sort of like a shorthand for to identify a community, and then it obviously expands from that point. It's really interesting. I find it interesting to talk to people about it, and maybe people that are a little more rigid, not as much of a fun of a conversation.
I'm sure if somebody's listening to this now, they're going to be rolling their eyes or throwing their hands up in the air or something.
Yeah, they're getting mad, and it's interesting because like I know that like Hotel Pools does not consider himself synthwave any way at all. He's just, I think he's more like, I'm electronic music.
Oh, going back to electronic music now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a totally fair thing to call as music. I think touching on the points of chill synth being more of a sense of community than a genre does make sense, because we started as a community. It was not called chill synth before we started, and that's kind of where the name came from. And we don't discriminate against genres in there. We allow anyone to make anything and post it, and we're like, you know, that's cool, because I and many others have taste that goes beyond just chill synth, believe it or not. But the community is really, yeah, it really is what ties us together. And there are times when people are like, I'd like some recommendations for so-and-so genre, and we'll be like, oh, okay. And sometimes genre names get confused because prior to Holmes' music, chill wave is what a lot of people call it still. Chill wave was not really exactly in that realm of things. So it does get confusing sometimes, but yeah, there's no use in being super rigid about it. It's chill synth is our community, and people have started just using that because it makes more sense.
It's so fascinating how things grow and evolve. I, and my own opinion changes as time progresses, because it just seems like if like I'm trying, like I have struggles trying to explain this to people that are not in this community, and what the distinguishers are, what is in this thing and what isn't in it, and what you should listen to, or what is, you know, like I was talking to my boss, and he's like, he knows that I run Nitrowave TC, and he's like, well, who is the artist? If I'm going to get into this music, who should I listen to? And I'm like, well, fuck.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
Shit. There's so many flavors and variations of that thing, and moods, and people. You can get really granular with what you're trying to explore musically. That it's hard to be like, well, you definitely need to listen to this, and then there's some argument that people say like there's been no synthwave since 2012, and that everything from this point forward can't be considered synthwave because some arbitrary bullshit rules that it's only those initial first artists like Laserhawk and all those guys, that they're the synthwave people.
I'll be honest, I never heard that one before. 2012.
I guess it's just going back to who you talk to about it.
Yeah, you talk to someone in this community, there's going to be a different opinion.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, that is very true. There's, yeah, people come from different places in their music listening journeys. You know, they think a certain way, other people think another way, and then they kind of come together in the community, and you know, it could get confusing like that. But yeah, I think it's music will always evolve, and the synthwave from 2012 and earlier will not be the same as it is now, or else that would be really boring.
Mm-hmm.
How would you even go about suggesting an artist to someone? I feel like you'd have to ask a lot of qualifying questions first.
Hey there, TPA listeners, Eric here. Sorry for interrupting, but this is the part where we do some shameless self-promotion. And we'd like to give our sincere thanks for listening to the show. And we are just as surprised as you are for listening. But since you're here, we'd like to highly encourage you to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And of course, for all things The Paradise Arcade, you can also visit us on theparadisearcade.com. Please like, share, and review our episodes. We like interacting with you. We like to hear your feedback. What's your favorite part of the interview? What you thought was interesting? Who we should get on the show next? Those are all important things that we'd like to hear. And the last thing, if you really like the show and you want more and you want to contribute, you could do something for us. You could find us on Patreon. You can contribute as little or as much as you want. On Patreon, you'll find some exclusive content that we will continue to update. Mostly, we just want to say thanks for listening. We appreciate you. So let's get back to it.
What's up, everybody? We're listening to Paradise Arcade.
To try and get an idea of what they know are like, and then go from there. What a nightmare! I don't think I could do it.
You know what? I just had the thought. There's more variety in this community of music than probably most others. Like, let's just go rock. Suggest to me a rock band. Well, you can spit off a bunch of them because they all explore a similar thread. You've got an electric guitar, and you play at a certain tempo and a certain song pattern, and you work within that essentially, and that's what you have, and it's more narrow in that way. And I am being generalistic, so please don't anyone give me hate on that. But then you switch it to like heavy down-tuned and like hard, and then you've got heavy metal, and that's a subgenre of rock music. But in a way, like, there's so many other waves and different things, and it's not just by the kind of music, but it's also by the era of when it's produced as well.
2012
Yeah.
Synthwave.
2012.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's rock is certainly more confined. I think what gives all of these wave genres or electronic music in general the variety is just that it started with just experimenting with analog synthesizers, and there's really no genre restraints on synthesizers. You can do whatever you want with them, and it's exploded
Yeah.
in the past few decades.
I'm going to make a bold proclamation. This overarching genre of music is the synthesizer's potential come true. Because there's so many things being done with synthesizers, and it's this front and center. Whereas, like, in the 70s when they came out, it'd be cute Boston in the background to have a little synthesizer. It would be like a little neat trick to have involved. Or it'd be made to sound like something else.
B-movie sound effects.
Right.
Here's a sound no one's heard of before. Throw it in this terrible sci-fi movie.
Exactly. Now it's like, with this music, everything that it can do becomes the star of the music. And when someone hits on something that's really captures attention or is really interesting, then we get into these. Now we've fractured off into waves, or you've got the Com-True sound or the Hotel Pool sound or the Perturbator sound or whatever it is, and it's all based off of they're using synthesizers a very specific way that becomes really like iconic to them in a particular sound, and it could be totally different than, well, I got this guitar pedal and it sounds like this, or I play guitar this way, and it it's interesting.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why it's really hard to figure out the lineage of all of these genres, and because I mean, people mix genres left and right, every day. You can mix non-electronic stuff with electronic stuff, and it's just become more of a cloud and not really a tree at this point.
That's a very good I think description. just this blob. It's all there floating around.
Yeah, and you want to listen to something cool, randomly click in that cloud and see what you get.
So let's loop around to the Chill Synth Discord. You are the owner and runner of it now. You didn't start it, but can you talk about your history with that channel and how that came about?
Sure. Originally, the server was started by a producer known as Admo. You may have heard of him. He
Yes.
does make the music that the community kind of represents, chill synth. And he and a few of those artists that were kind of getting exposure on electronic gems came together and decided to create a community, which became chill synth. And at that time, I didn't know about it. I was running my own server for the Polycore YouTube channel. And one day, the producers, Admo and Allison, both joined my server. And I'm like, oh, what's up, guys? And they one day said, hey, we got a server that you might be interested in. So I joined. And that is what chill synth is. So I joined it pretty early, although I wouldn't say I'm the original founders or any. I'm not among the original founders or anything, but I did join pretty early, and eventually we noticed that Electronic Gems was trying to start his server for Discord, and he decided that he was going to sort of partner with us to make us his Discord. So that's when it blew up, you know. And that's where the community kind of really got its roots. Is it's Electronic Gems music, it's chill synth, and that's where most of the people came from. Eventually, that connection kind of got severed because it became confusing. Because it's not really the Electronic Gem server; it's chill synth. It's its own thing now, so it got kind of confusing. And that kind of connection was broken off at some point, but we had momentum, so it didn't matter, and people still look for us coming from that side of the YouTube space. And eventually, I was active enough in helping around, and I got asked to be a moderator. And then shortly after, I got asked to be the admin, and Admo had some things going on in his life. He wasn't able to attend to the server as well as he could before. So that was kind of the moment. I think it was in 2019 when he really gave up the reins, and that's when I kind of took things over for him. And then eventually, I think it was a little over a year ago that he just kind of gave up the last of what he had there, as gave me owner of it. He's still part of the community. He's very inactive, but we welcome his opinion anytime. Excuse me there, just taking a sip of water. And it's just kind of, it's been a really interesting experience. I've kind of, me and some of the other moderators and founders kind of came up with some ideas for the server to push it forward, like producer competitions or feedback streams. And that's kind of something we try to do, but aren't, I'll be honest, not super well at the moment. It's not as often as I'd like, but we have grown really quickly. And I think last year we became partnered with Discord. So that was really great. I think that helped our numbers.
The whole Discord thing is really, it's so fascinating. These communities that are built inside of the of Discord, and how it's I just can't keep track of all that stuff. I'm in Night Ride FM's Discord, and I lose conversation threads. Like if you look away for like 1 minute, you lose the thread. It feels like, and having to scroll through, it's so active. And then you guys you're hooked up with Night Ride FM as well. So like it's this thing that's like building, and it keeps building, and it's like the amount of people on those servers, it's really impressive. And really active. That's the one thing that I am so impressed by, is just the interaction. That's what you want. If you hope to start a community, you want people to be really engaged in it. And I think with the chill synth and community, like it's really impressive how much people engage with that server and network and communicate and chat. And it seems like when I go in, you're really seeing like real life happening on the screen. You know what I mean? Like just regular living life, people interacting. It's so cool. And then you can drop in and be a part of that if you so choose.
Yeah, that's a really great way to describe it. It's at first, if you're new to Discord, it's just kind of a fast chat, hard to keep track, but uh, yeah, it gets really deep, and the connections between people get really strong, and it's one of the most tight-knit communities I've been a part of. Um, and even as it has grown bigger, it's been, I'd say, retaining that sense of closeness really well. And yeah, Night Ride FM is a great server too. I would say it's busier than ChillSynth often.
Yeah.
But Z, who runs it, really great guy and a great partner.
Yeah, he's Z has been one of our big supporters from the very beginning, before we're even the Paradise Arcade, when we were our other show. And he was really pushing us to get involved and be active on that server and be part of their channel. And so like I'm really thankful to Z, and he's a really great guy, a great partner, and really supportive. So it's good to have him in your corner when you're building these communities and these things.
Yeah, I really can't underestimate what he's been doing. I mean, the radios are huge, and I was really grateful to work with them to make Chill Synth Radio a thing. And thanks to, of course, the people that did help with that. Hannah, I think, helped with that a lot, and Dave also, Dave Z. So that was a really great endeavor on their part, and it really helped expose a lot of the artists in our community and get them more recognition. And he's still working on more radios. I think at the moment we're working on a datawave radio, so that's going to be coming together at some point.
You sent me the Spotify playlist for datawave, and it's mostly Com Trues with a few sprinkled other artists in there. Have you seen more of an uptick lately in datawave? Obviously, it's enough to designate a genre about it, but have you seen that growing?
It's certainly a very small genre, and really only recently people have started calling it that within chill synth. But I see, I was just talking to another artist recently by the name of Midnight Out, and he wanted to release a datawave album with Polycore, and that's first time the public heard that. So there we go. We'll be announcing that somewhere down the line, but he actually, so he's really into the genre, so that was cool to see. I think one of the moderators in Chill Synth was very intrigued by it and was interested in making it. I'm not sure where he is on that journey, but I see that people are taking interest in that, and there's certainly also different angles to take on the genre, because I think I didn't stick super close to the Comtrue style necessarily, but I did try to sort of get the vibe. I think there's different angles that that can be taken with it.
That's for sure. I've had this conversation with a few other, both Comtrues themselves and some of the other up and coming datawave Memorex memories. I think.
I can't believe I forgot him.
Yeah, shame on you. I was waiting for you to bring Sean up. Obviously, In Motion 2, I think, really solidifies datawave as a thing, and a thing itself. But what it reminds me of is Aphex Twin and Square Pusher and the IDM guys from Warp, with the sort of the glitchy drums and the glitched out tunes a bit. Like, it reminds me of that. And people that want to listen in on a conversation about how it's influenced, say, Memorex memories, please listen to that episode. he goes pretty in depth about how Aphex Twin really inspired him. And so it's interesting that through line, like Comtrue's obviously is sort of maybe the focal point, but I see it going further back than Seth.
I definitely agree, and In Motion 2, honestly, probably one of the best EPs in the community of the year. I'm just gonna make the call right now. uh, I was really blown away by that, and yeah, he's taking that angle of IDM. He's getting some good IDM in there, and I'm a fan of Aphex Twin, so I really do see the quality in it, and it's 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 really one of the most interesting angles, and I think what really was great is it was recognized I think by Stratford or Memorex as datawave. I think that's one of the tags on Bandcamp.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool to see. And I think that's totally a totally like a legit way to encapsulate datawave. I thought, well, the stuff that's in the playlist already, not taking into that, not taking into account that EP is a little bit more subdued, and that one really just takes it full force. There's the sort of those robotic voices in there and glitches everywhere. I think that could be the direction it's heading into, and I hope Sean explores that more.
Yeah, I'm curious where he goes with it. I know that he was pretty tired after wrapping up In Motion 2, but I do believe he's working on new things already. But you're right, and just the through line of his music from Pictures of Purple Skies all the way through, like he's clearly on a journey, and he's getting more experimental, more finding, I think, more his own voice and being confident in that, and it's producing some really interesting and compelling music. I really love In Motion 2. It's one of my favorite, and of course it's March, so to say it's my favorite release of the year isn't necessarily saying very much right now, but it's a very strong. Or is it
saying something? Like, it doesn't matter what comes out after this right now, that's going to be the best thing.
Yeah, it's very compelling. I really, really, it's a solid listen all the way through. Like, you can listen to every single track, and I love the fact that he didn't try to fatten it and make it an album. He kept it tight as an EP, and it's really strong.
Yeah, definitely. He definitely, it's just jam packed full of quality. There's no dull moment on that EP, and another thing I did notice is along his journey, he did explore different sides of music. I mean, Pictures of Purple Skies is of course chill synth, and I hear a lot of house in there as well. And The Life of Riley takes a different approach. It's kind of more indie. There's some guitars in there, and In Motion 2, of course, is taking that, I guess, what we call now datawave route. And it would be cool to hear more of that from him, but who knows? He could be experimenting with something completely different next.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be compelling no matter what he does, and I really liked the difference between The Life of Riley and In Motion 2. You could see it. You could see some of the things that he did in The Life of Riley carry through into In Motion. Again, really leaning more into like that glitch and doing some really interesting things, but then he just turned it on its ear and went full on datawave. It's interesting how like it's a thing that's unfolding right in front of us, and like that's the first album, like, yes, it's that is datawave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no question about it.
And so, you're wrapped really thoroughly in the community aspect. You're doing the record label. You're working on distribution. Man, that's a whole lot of stuff to keep track of. And then you did the curation for In Decay II. How did that come about?
Oh yeah, that was really a surprise to me. One day, I think it was just about 3 years ago. his manager reached out to me and said, "Hey, we'd like you to curate, the next Comtruce album, because you are the what they called the number one, or the what do they call it, the premier archivist of his music." And I thought, wow, that's really really great to hear.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't think of myself like that, but I was really humbled by that.
That's a really fancy title to have.
Right.
Can you put that on a job application?
Oh yeah, I had to. Yeah, right. I had to give him my social security number and everything. No, no. Yeah, that was. It was just a little, you know, side thing, I guess. Through email. He wanted to do something like, of course, his first album, In Decay, was just a compilation of some stuff that he's made before, and just had to have a place for it. And so that was kind of the same thing with this. And they were watching my channel for a little bit before they reached out. I noticed that on Twitter. I think the year prior that Seth tweeted out a couple of my uploads. I mean, I thought that was kind of cool. So I didn't think it would turn into that, but yeah, I guess they saw that I was keeping track of some of the stuff that got lost over time, and they wanted me to come up with a list of those tracks that would go on that album.
How do you even start?
Yeah, did you have anything in mind right away, or did you just kind of have to dig deep?
I did have some in mind right away, but I was also thorough about it. I was thinking, what would be the perfect set list, within their constraints. Um, and I think at that point I already had a playlist of that stuff that was off catalog, unreleased. So I was kind of looking through there and picking and pulling and coming up with what I thought would be the best album. And not everything was I will say not everything was exactly what I said, but it was mostly that. I think he put in a couple of like buffer tracks, intro and outro, in that album to make it more complete. And but really what's in the middle is what I suggested. And I was kind of like putting them together in different orders and thinking, this track before this one, does that sound good? This one could lead into that track. That would sound really great. I was kind of putting it together and kind of listening to it and seeing what flows the best.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my follow-up questions, was in regards to track order.
Yeah, the track order was definitely I definitely made that on purpose, and I wasn't just throwing things together.
And so now I heard from somebody that Seth went back and found all of those old files and then revamped them all for the release.
That is correct. Yes, he did that, and I can't imagine how much time that would have taken, because some of those go back to, I think, probably 2010, the earliest of the works in his alias. So I thought that was great. I mean, it's not to just take maybe the MP3 files that exist, but actually get the project files and renew them for the album was really a good move.
I heard he said he would never do it again.
Yeah, I don't blame him for that. Yeah.
And so I just wanted a confirmation. I heard it secondhand. I trust the person that told me, because he said he heard it directly from Seth, but I just wanted a confirmation of that, because you get into, when we did the episode for Galactic Melt, he was talking about the different versions of the programs. So, he made Galactic Melt on an early version of Reason, and if you opened up modern day Reason and then reopened up those files, you could not get the same song. They would sound completely different, because all of the things have changed. All the hardware emulations, all the things would have changed, so you couldn't physically make that album again. So I can't imagine opening up a project file from 2010, even in 2018 or 2019, when he potentially open this stuff up and then tried to revamp it. That's just a Herculean effort to try and make that work.
Yeah, that is definitely huge. He must have had to maybe dust off an old computer and reinstall it, or he must have spent a lot of hours trying to get the environment as perfectly matched as it was when those were made.
And he did all of this instead of making another record, a new one.
Yeah, I suppose he did. I mean, Persuasion System did come out, I think after we talked, but that was probably produced before he started working on that. But yeah, I noticed there was a big gap between when we were talking and discussing those details and when it actually came out. And I was thinking, wow, he must be, pretty busy with that, or probably plenty of other things going on in his life. And of course, COVID was hitting somewhere in there.
Yeah, that's really. I want to sit back and bask in that thought a little bit, because it's cool that you chose tracks and someone went back through and redid those tracks that you suggested out of all of the things.
I wonder if he was thinking, like, I really hope he doesn't pick track X because of that exact reason.
I think one of the tracks I think a couple did not make it on, and that's totally fair. Maybe were for sample or copyright reasons or something else, but I have to say he did a great job at putting that together and renewing all the tracks.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you've been involved in really, really cool things, and you continue to be involved in the growth that you're seeing, just the natural interest. I think that is it's really awesome, and I'm curious what Polycore is going to do, and that leap maybe to some other formats and things like that does for you. Because I like what you're doing. I think it's really interesting, and it's a needed space for artists that, as you say, that don't necessarily fit into certain things, but you've done a really good job of curating, I think. And that's the important thing. I think, you think about classic record labels, and you're way younger than either Kyle and I are, but when we were growing up, you wanted to find new music. You got into a record label, right? I like this record label. I'm probably going to buy this artist, because there's no Spotify, there was no Napster, there wasn't any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. They weren't playing on the radio. So you had to take a leap of faith to go buy the CD, and they were like $20 a piece. So you're like, I like this record label. They're producing some stuff that I like, so I'm going to buy more of that record label. And you're kind of doing the same thing, where you're putting your stamp of approval on artists to say, these are cool. If you like this other stuff that I do, then you're also going to like this.
Right. Yeah. That is another one of the main purposes of it, is just to aggregate some of the music and artists that are really underground, but are really, really putting out high quality stuff together. And hopefully we grow together and become, maybe have a shred of success together.
Have you thought about doing like a vinyl compilation album or a cassette compilation album of kind of like the best of in your mind that really explores, maybe say, datawave?
Yeah, I definitely have thought about doing sort of like those compilations. I think Stratford does something called Secret Selection, which I thought was really cool and innovative for a record label. And I'm not trying to rip them off or anything, but
rip them off. Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I mean, I did have write a compilation for the 5-year anniversary last year, and that went pretty smoothly. But I think, in the future, it totally could be something to think about. It's on the table for sure.
Just saying, you make those, and you can maybe ship them our way, and we'll hand them out at concerts.
That's a great idea. I might take you up on that offer.
I got plenty of ideas. I'm not necessarily going to do any of the labor, but I'll give you plenty of ideas.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so that's really because I'm thinking about like everything that you're doing, and I just instantly thought of like, well, you're curating cool, you're curating something that you're really passionate about, and how do you kind of distill that? How do you explain it to somebody? Again, it's just like, tell me what synthwave is. Well, here's a compilation of everything I think encapsulates this thing. Here it is. And people like physical stuff. And, there's other record labels. You obviously talked about Stratford with Secret Selections, but also like Electric Dream Records does a compilation. So does Time Slave. So does there's one more in there. I think EPR is going to release a compilation and kind of like really show this is who we are. This is what we're about. This is, if you're going to buy from our label or support our label, this is the vibe that you're going to get.
Yeah. That totally, yeah, I definitely see the value in that. And of course I could also pull from the community, the wider community, if I don't think I have not enough to make a compilation.
I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, I probably will be, but yeah, it's definitely something to think about for sure.
Yeah, it's really, it's cool. So, I mean, what other, really got into Comtrues, and that was your first like reintroduction or thing that got you hooked into electronic music and then synthwave. Who in your mind today is also really doing a great job that you're really drawn to, other than Comtrues?
That's a great question. I have to say, Memorex Memories is a great pick for that. The answer to that question. I'm pretty drawn to his journey and his music. I think Clyde Shelton, who's on my label, is also doing some really cool stuff. Although it is in the same vein of Comtrues. But I think a lot of people get hooked on his stuff because he just really just throws everything at it. All the tropes of datawave and Comtrues, he just kind of throws all of it in there. And you just get a face full of what you really want. That's how I would describe his music.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really. I'm gonna have to. I haven't checked his music. I'm very familiar with Memorex Memories, obviously. And so, what's next for your record label? Are you gearing up to do some more releases? Is there anything kind of special that you're cooking behind the scenes?
Let's see. I think we got at least three confirmed releases this year so far. All albums. So that's really nice. There may be more, I have no idea. Sometimes there's, an artist comes to me and they're like, "Hey," and I'm thinking, "Oh, I could fit this in over here." So, three confirmed releases at least for this year. And one of them is from the producer Midnight Drift. Who's kind of he's not doing something super similar to the other stuff that I put out, but he's really really how would I describe him? I don't know, he's young and he's a great producer already, so he's really doing amazing stuff with kind of like synthwave and pop also, and indie. He fuses a lot of things together, and I think we're planning a sort of a lyric video, at least for that, maybe a music video, I'm not sure.
So you got stuff moving. You got a lot of things in development.
Yeah, you've got a lot of things cooking, and I feel exhausted hearing about it, and I'm not the one doing any of it. I mean, you've got so much going on right now. Do you ever feel like you need to stave off the burnout, or you're just chugging along?
honestly, sometimes I do feel like I need a break, but really, I mean, I've just kind of been on this for the past 2 years, just kind of making it a thing, making it happen. Um, yeah, I'll admit it's a lot of work for sure. It takes a lot of energy away, but really, it also gives me energy, because I'm really passionate about it. Um, Something to do with my free time, I guess.
True that. That's really, again, I admire that. It's important, and it's a lot of there's a lot of labor, and it's interesting. Um, you had to basically get the ball rolling, starting the momentum, and that takes a huge amount of effort. And then it gets rolling, and builds more momentum. And you do a little bit less, but then you want to have it grow, so you got to put more energy into it. And you've obviously had help because it's a communal effort, but still, to spearhead and have that vision, it's really cool, and really, again, I just want to say thank you for what you do in the community, and your passion about it, and it fills a really important spot in the music and for the artists that fit into what you're doing. So it's really cool. I appreciate what you're doing. It's special.
I'll definitely say that you helped me with my burnout, because I feel like I've been kind of in a bad situation, and it doesn't help because it's just like there's so much music coming out, so much stuff to keep up with, that I had to take a step back. Like, I needed to just, for myself. I don't have a lot going on or anything, but I did feel the burnout and had to step back, and I know that hurts with having this kind of show when we want to talk about music, and I'm missing out on some of this stuff. But being able to, for me, discover Demon, that got me back into it. Like, here's an artist that I can really get excited about. Here's something to get me back in it. So thanks for helping me in that regard with my burnout.
Oh man, I'm just glad to be part of the whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun. What people don't know in the background of the lead up into the Demon interview is, as we were discovering who he was, and it was like this: is he Comtrue's? Is he secretly Comtrue's? That was really fun having those conversations on the internet with the people in the community, because he's so secretive, and not by any malicious or anything like that. He's shy boy.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can say the same for myself also, but I'm, as a consequence of doing all this, I am out there.
Yeah, you kind of put yourself in an awkward spot if you want to be anonymous.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, Nick, I really appreciate you coming on to the show today, and talking with us with everything you're doing and your story, and it's really exciting. I've seen what you've been doing growing. I've seen datawave take off. I've seen a lot of those things build momentum. So you're doing something right. So that's really awesome. So hopefully we get to see you continue to do that. Kyle, do you have anything else?
I just kind of had a thought going off of something that you were talking about earlier. Sure. I mean, it doesn't require a response by either one of you, but just an observation. You were talking about when we were kids, because we're ancient, and finding new music, and I was just thinking about the curation process. It's like there wasn't as many choices out there. Somebody had to curate the few options available, and we had to listen to this, and now we're at the point where there's so many options available that we need someone to curate the infinite options that there are and help out. So it was just a weird observation about how it's gone to the two extremes at this point now.
Right.
Yeah, that's for sure. Takes a lot more work to boil it down to something that you're looking for sure.
I would imagine that as you've progressed and as you've grown, your access to things that are within the realm of what you're trying to find is maybe easier, because maybe people are presenting it to you now instead of you slogging through things, MP3 files or YouTube channels or Spotify playlists. I mean, are things, I guess my question is it getting easier for you because are you getting exposed, people bringing things to your attention now?
I have to say it's not necessarily easier. I would say it's overall easier, but I've had to kind of cut off the whole submissions thing recently because it's just too much. I don't have the time to look through everything that people submit me for the channel, and I'm just trying to focus more on the label at this point. But uh, the difference now versus back then is certainly that I've made more connections, and there are people on Discord especially that um, make music, and in the feedback streams I hear some of that, and I think that's been more valuable. Just kind of hearing people progress in there, and that's where I can find some new music that I think is, it's easier because it's kind of already boiled down, and it's yeah, it's definitely a lot of work when you got, bunches of submissions coming into your inbox, and you just don't have time to look through it. And if you do go look through it, it's you're like, oh, this is not bad, this is not bad, but you're really looking for something very, unique or captures your attention, and I think that's still a task these days.
Mm-hmm. That's why we don't do it at all. We don't play music. We don't fuck around in any of that shit because I don't have the time with the projects and personal life and the attention span to listen to all of that. And people try to submit stuff to us all the time. Like, we're not a radio show. We don't play music. So, well, could you listen to it if I have time? I rely on people that I trust, friends who are active in the community that kind of already know my tastes and things that I really like, and they're like, "Hey, you need to fucking check that." Like, and it's mostly Kyle.
That's nice of you to say that you trust me.
Yeah, I mean, you turned me on to Demon, and truthfully, you turned me on to Com Trues. So there you go, full circle.
The Ouroboros is complete.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, Nick. It's been a great conversation. Until next time, this is Eric.
And this is Kyle.
And this is Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
It's a motherfucking paradise I can't